He had already been arrested once. The charges were already filed. The victim had already told police what happened inside that Hollywood Hills home. 6 days, tied up, burned with the hot end of a crack pipe, forced into acts she never agreed to.
According to police, the 25-year-old alleged victim claims she met Rick James and his female companion at a party. She says the trio then returned here to James' Hollywood home. It was on the nights of July 16th and 17th that alleged victim claims she became a virtual prisoner here, held at gunpoint, even tied up and tortured, she claims, by being burnt with the hot end of a crack cocaine pipe.
Rick James was already out on bail for all of it. And then he did it again. This time, a music executive. She thought she was walking into a business meeting. What she walked into was a 20-hour ordeal she would later describe to police in detail. Beaten, held, unable to leave. 2 kidnappings. 1 man. The same man who made Super Freak. The same man whose music is still playing at your family barbecue right now. How did we get here? Before we answer that, we need to go back. Because Rick James isn't the only name in this story. And to understand how any of this was possible, how it went on for as long as it did, how the public kept showing up, kept buying records, kept celebrating these men, you have to understand exactly how high they were sitting before everything came apart. Elvis Presley needs no introduction. You already know the name. You already know what he meant to music. The man didn't just have hit records. He redefined what popular music in America could even be. A household name across generations. An icon so embedded into the culture that his image was still selling decades after his death. James Brown, 50-plus years of music, multiple platinum albums, 6 different legendary nicknames, Mr. Dynamite, the hardest-working man in show business, the godfather of soul. To have that many iconic names attached to you, you have to be something real. And he was John Lennon, one of the most beloved musicians ever recorded. Martyred, synonymous with peace, getting better on every best of list in existence. Imagine still played at every vigil, every protest, every moment the world needs to believe things can be better. Dr. Dre, billionaire. NWA, Death Row Records, Beats by Dre, one of the few people to ever cross from hip-hop into billionaire status. A cultural institution in one body. And Rick James, multiple gold albums, street songs going platinum. Super Freak planted so deep into pop culture that MC Hammer had to sample it to have his biggest hit. These men were not just famous. They were trusted. The audience didn't just know their music. They believed in the identity the music sold: rebellion, peace, liberation, authenticity. That trust is the whole story. Because without the height, there is no fall. The music was real. What was happening behind it was a completely different story. It's glitched system. And this is why the music you love doesn't always come from the people you think it does. Let's start with what the world saw. Elvis met Priscilla in 1959, during his time in the army in Germany. That's documented history. What gets mentioned a little more quietly is that she was 14 years old and he was 24. They maintained contact over the phone after he returned to the States. They didn't see each other face to face for another 3 years. And in 1967, when she was 22, he married her. That is presented in most telling of this story as a romance. A love story. The context that she was a teenager when he began pursuing her tends to get softened into biography. It was not the only time. Joel Williamson, author of Elvis Presley, A Southern Life, documented that 2 years before Elvis met Priscilla, he took a group of 3 14-year-old girls on tour with him. And before the fame, before the money, at 19 years old, Elvis had a 15-year-old girlfriend and, according to Williamson, an obsession with virginity that ran through his relationships consistently. This is the rise. These details existed inside it the whole time. The world just wasn't looking at them. James Brown was building something different. 50 years. Hundreds of shows. An organization, a band, a radio station, a staff. that ran with a level of discipline his employees described as closer to a military operation. If you worked for James Brown, you addressed every colleague formally. Mr. Mrs. Mississippi. A fireable offense if you didn't. Band members paid fines for infractions on stage. Mowing his radio station lawn to work off debts they owed him for playing a wrong note. Journalist Glenn Ford, who worked at Brown's Augusta radio station, described James as a man who held only one black person in particularly high regard: himself. During a civil rights boycott in Augusta, Ford arrived at his microphone ready to promote it. He found a note from Brown. There will be no mention of the downtown merchants boycott on this radio station. The movement died. The advertisers kept their accounts. Take that with the caveat that Glenn Ford is one source. But Ford was there. He worked the station. He found the note himself. Meanwhile, John Lennon was making Getting Better, a song that appears on every greatest albums list ever compiled. Inside it, he sang openly, "I used to be cruel to my woman. I beat her and kept her apart from the things that she loved." Most people heard that as poetry, as honesty, as art processing the past. In his 1980 Playboy interview, the most comprehensive he ever gave, conducted a year before his death, Lennon said something that, if you listen to it now, sounds almost like a man describing himself in real time. "I am always on about peace. You see, it is the most violent people who go for love and peace. Everything's the opposite." The world heard that and called it wisdom. We'll come back to it. Dr. Dre, 1991. Music industry party in Los Angeles. Television host Dee Barnes had interviewed NWA for her show Pump It Up. Ice Cube had appeared separately and taken shots at the group. The episode aired. Dre saw it. At the party, Dre approached Dee Barnes, picked her up by her hair and her ear, and slammed her head into a wall. She fell. He kept kicking her. She got to the bathroom. He kicked the door open and hit her again in the back of the head. She filed a $22 million lawsuit. Dre received 2 years of probation, 240 hours of community service, and was ordered to make a public statement against violence. His response to the incident, on the record, "It ain't no big thing. I just threw her through a door." The lawsuit was settled out of court. His career continued. He went on to build a billion-dollar empire. The online reaction to this, when it resurfaced years later, split down a line that tells you everything. People who had spent decades separating the art from the artist suddenly having to reckon with the fact that the artist had told them exactly who he was from the beginning. A comment that appears again and again under these threads: "We knew. We just decided it didn't count."
So you were getting punched in the face and then...
Oh, I was getting dragged on the floor, shot at, yeah.
Shot at?
Yeah, and I guess I don't know what I always did. And I always say, well, it could have been just me. So one day one night we was arguing, he went and got the gun, and I just made it through the bathroom door and he shot at me and he missed me by that much.
But Dre's situation, as documented, as serious as it was far from the most extreme name in this story. Not even close. Ringo Starr, fellow Beatle. By his own admission, his own words, not allegations, he described himself during the late 1980s as a drunk, a wife-beater, and an absent father. Author Andrew Grant Jackson, in Still the Greatest, writes that by that period Starr was blacking out regularly and getting violent. Ringo himself described coming to one Friday afternoon and being told by his staff that he had, quote, "trashed Barbara so badly they thought she was dead." He eventually sobered up. He stayed with her. John Lennon, Getting Better, the song most people know as Hopeful. The 1980 Playboy interview where he said, "All that, I used to be cruel to my woman, I beat her. That was me. I was a hitter. I couldn't express myself and I hit. I fought men and I hit women." He added that he believed he had come close to killing people he fought on multiple occasions. He framed it as growth, as something he had moved past. And maybe he had, but the record exists. He said it, in his own words, Unprompted, Elvis. The pattern documented across multiple sources. Controlling behavior, alleged drugging of Priscilla with amphetamines to keep her awake during drug-fueled sex sessions, which she described in her 1985 memoir. Polaroid photographs he stored in a silver suitcase that was delivered to her after his death, years after their divorce. And Ginger Alden. He allegedly had an assistant pop the tires on her car during an argument, so she couldn't leave. On another occasion, when she managed to drive away, a gunshot was reportedly fired at her vehicle. One man, multiple women, across decades. A pattern that was visible if you were standing close enough to see it. James Brown. We said the floor of this story was Ringo. James Brown is several floors above that. His daughters described his treatment of their mother, his second wife, Deidre Jenkins, as thunder rolling through the house. Walls. Silence after. Wondering if the silence meant their mother was dead. One incident they witnessed directly. His third wife, Adrienne Rodriguez, reported that Brown beat her with an iron pipe and shot at her car. That led to his arrest in 1988. 3 more arrests for assault followed. In 1995, Adrienne was hospitalized. The charges were dropped. The following year, she died during surgery, which, as you'd expect, generated its own set of questions. His fourth wife, Tanya Heine, alleged that Brown pushed her to the floor and threatened her with a chair. He pleaded no contest. He was fined. No jail time. There is a pattern here that stretches across every relationship James Brown had across his entire adult life.
How did all of this trouble begin?
Living in America. There's nothing wrong.
Nothing wrong at all? You're not in any difficulty, but you're out on bond.
No, I'm not.
Have all the charges been dropped?
Yeah, I'm out on love. Alone from night to night, you find me.
Now, James, this isn't the first time you and your wife have had a problem. Are the two of you going to be able to work this out?
Let's talk about some music.
You want to talk about music, and you don't want to talk about what happened?
No, it's all over.
Well, let's talk about your tour. When are you leaving?
That's not a bad night. That's not drugs and youth and a mistake. That is who he was, consistently across decades, to the people who were closest to him. And Brown's former publicist Jacques Hollander filed a lawsuit in 2005 alleging that in 1988, Brown assaulted her while holding her at gunpoint. The case was dismissed, not on the merits but because the statute of limitations had passed. Dr. Dre. We covered 1991, but it didn't stop there. Michelle, the mother of one of his children, accused him of years of sustained domestic violence during their relationship. 5 black eyes, scars she described in detail in an interview where she also said he shot at her and missed.
So you were getting punched in the face and
Oh, I was getting dragged on the floor, shot at, yeah.
shot at?
Yeah. And I guess I don't know what I always did. And I always say, well, it could have been just me. So one day one night we was arguing, he went and got the gun. And I just made it through the bathroom door and he shot at me and he missed me by that much.
She left. She came back. He cheated throughout. He got multiple other women pregnant during the same period. Another of his children's mothers, Lisa Johnson, stated that Dre beat her repeatedly, including while she was pregnant. She was granted a restraining order. Former label associate Terry B. claimed Dre assaulted her at a party in response to one of her tracks. In 2015, during the press run for Straight Outta Compton, Dre finally addressed the record. I made some horrible mistakes. I was young, stupid. I would say all the allegations aren't true, but some of them are. Those are things I would like to take back. The women he said that to received it with the silence it deserved. Everything on this list has been documented, testified to, admitted. Every name has left a paper trail long enough to follow to the end. But there is one that is different. Not because of who it involves, because of the scale of what was recorded. 142 pages. XXXTentacion. His former girlfriend delivered over 2.5 hours of testimony. 142 pages of transcribed detail. The two of them met at one of his shows. He invited her to move in. Within 2 weeks, he slapped her and broke her phone because she had complimented a male friend. Then he left the room. He came back carrying 2 grilling implements, a barbecue fork and a barbecue cleaner. He told her to choose one, because he was going to use one of them on her. She chose the fork. He told her to undress. He dragged it lightly against her inner thigh. She passed out. He did not go further in that moment. What followed, according to those 142 pages, was a sustained pattern. Death threats almost every day. Headbutting, punching, stomping, the bathtub, broken clothes hangers across her legs. Approximately 30, across their time together. Attempts to cut her hair. A drowning attempt. A knife to her neck when she confessed to sleeping with someone else while he was in jail. Strangling. And when he found out she was pregnant. Threats to kill her and the child. And a beating that she described as leaving her face almost unrecognizable. At one point, he held her captive. She eventually escaped. He pleaded not guilty. He denied the allegations publicly in multiple interviews. His fans petitioned for his release. The victim herself, under documented pressure, said she didn't want him to face jail time. The case was active when he was murdered in 2018 and was subsequently closed. After his death, audio surfaced in which X said,
"Until I started f***ing her up, bro. But I started f***ing her up because she made one mistake, and then from there, the whole cycle went down. Now she's scared. That girl is scared for her life."
That girl was scared for her life. Later in the same recording, "I will kill that girl if she plays with me." His lawyer claimed that if he had lived and seen the trial through, the worst he would have received was probation. The internet split in a way that tells you everything about how this works. Tributes, shrines, tattoos, and on the other side, 142 pages that were public record for anyone who chose to read them. Most people chose the shrine. In every name on this list, there is a version the world loved and a version the people closest to them had to survive. The music made the first version feel permanent. It was the second version that was real. Here is what that means, not about these specific men, but about how this actually operates. For most of human history, artistic genius has functioned as a social proxy for character. When a song is transcendent, we extend that transcendence to the person who made it. We don't decide to do that. It just happens. The music is beautiful, so the man must be good. That is not logic. It is a feeling. And the music industry understood that feeling and protected it, because the revenue depended on it. Every name on this list had management, had labels, had publicists, had attorneys, had people whose entire professional purpose was to ensure that the version the world loved stayed intact. What was happening at home was not a secret to everyone around them. It was managed, and the audience, us, participated without knowing we were participating. We heard the peace anthem and gave the man who wrote it the moral authority to match it. We heard the confessional lyric and called it art instead of admission. We heard the rumors and chose the music. Now go back to John Lennon. 1980, Playboy. 1 year before his death. I am always on about peace. It is the most violent people who go for love and peace. Everything's the opposite. He was describing himself. He said so explicitly in the same interview, "I was a hitter. I fought men and I hit women." He knew exactly what he was. He understood the gap between the icon and the man better than anyone. And the world heard it, nodded, called it wisdom, and kept playing Imagine. The music didn't lie about who they were. We just chose not to hear it. As always, it's Glitch System, and I want to thank you all for watching today's video. I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.